welcome to the Oregon Files podcast. First, our disclaimer. We are amateur podcasters simply for entertainment. If we misquoted or offend, it was not on purpose to do so. Also, we're recording from an attic space today, so you may hear other noises. We usually have a dog around, kids, neighbors, what have you. Thank you and enjoy, and here's Elliot Bowman.
Yeah, we're back in our recording studio in Mark's attic, spare room space. And we're on to episode 19.
19.
I can't believe this is already episode 19. We're old enough to go to war, but we're not old enough to drink.
That's real.
Episode 19. we're maturing through our podcast life here. We're still adolescents in our podcast. No, it's been great. Are you one of those people that have to do everything in like an odd or even number? Like
have OCD, you mean? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I work at a bank. I have to have OCD. Yes.
Do you count your steps like where you go, or do you make sure like you step in tiles evenly?
Not so much that, but no, there's a lot of counting or doing things on even numbers for sure.
Yeah.
I was born on an even number day, so yeah, I have to. Yeah, I have to.
It's coming up.
Yeah. I don't celebrate, but actually no, what I do for my birthday every year is I try to do. It's something that my wife and I we actually started doing was we tried to do like a little pay it forward thing. Oh, so I like to do something fun, like, even if it's just, give a homeless man $5 at Fred Meyer.
Yeah,
that's
pond,
good. That's all I do for my birthday.
It's a good way to celebrate your birthday.
Right? It makes it fun, makes it memorable.
Yeah.
We've done a couple things. Like there's one time I paid for someone's, they just had a little bit of groceries, I think somewhere, and we paid for the groceries. And then it's kind of a fun way we do it. We started doing it on our birthdays and our wedding anniversary. And we don't know what we're going to do that day, but we just kind of set out to do something, pay it forward, that kind of stuff. So,
well, good. That's good, man. I like to celebrate my birthday playing video games and eating sandwiches. So
nothing wrong with that.
You're better than the both of us.
Well, I told my wife this year, I wanted to have a picnic. I haven't never been like on an official like picnic where like
a basket.
Yeah, like a basket, something a bear's going to swipe.
Hey, boo boo.
Yeah. So I said, it'd be kind of cool if we went and did that, but. Who knows? It'll probably rain that day. So
no, you go up in the Callahans, or there's plenty of spots you can go find off-roading with your Prius.
We'll go. Yeah.
You got 4-wheel drive in Prius?
The Prius does not have 4-wheel drive, but man, I've gone through some crazy places with that Prius.
Yeah. Have you had to put on chains?
No.
Even when it snowed.
When we had Snowmageddon a couple of years ago, I was delivering pizzas. And my favorite part was...
I forgot you were delivering pizzas.
Delivering pizzas in a Prius in a snowstorm. And my favorite part is I would deliver to houses where people had like 4-wheel drive Jeeps.
Yeah.
But they were too scared to drive in the snow. So here comes this little 2015 Prius trekking up this hill, no chains. I got a lot of good tips that day.
Yeah.
That was good. A lot of people did not like... Yeah,
people are hungry in snowstorms.
Yes, they are. A couple inches of snow. They're like, oh...
All right. Well, today, Mark, back to telling some good stories, some Oregon folklore, and then we have some other cool topics to talk about, some Oregon trivia, and then we have some good old dad jokes like normal. So without further ado, Mark, all right, take it away, sir.
First, we're going to do let me cover our sponsors and a couple shout outs. First, Video Games Plus and Level Up Frozen Yogurt open 7 days a week off Stevens in Roseburg, Oregon. Level Up Frozen Yogurt has new flavors every month. Some are dairy-free and over 50 toppings, including fresh fruit. They also have an very impressive new game selection and DVDs, Blu-rays, even disc golf needs. So definitely check out Video Games Plus and Level Up Frozen Yogurt.
Truth.
And then the other shout-outs we want to do is Brandon at galaxygosounds@yahoo.com. galaxygosounds@yahoo.com. He's the one who created our intro and outro music. So if you enjoy that and want your own music created by Brandon, reach out to him. And one other shout out I want to do is to our last guest that we had on the last podcast, Mr. Doug Pichelle.
Thank you, Doug.
Phenomenal
Thank
interview.
You, Doug. Doug was awesome.
Such a great interview. Nothing but great comments that we got from that one. I had so many people reach out afterwards just saying what an interesting guy he was and how much they really enjoyed that interview. So Doug, thanks again. And you got a lot of fans now, buddy.
As you should.
As you should. All right. So today I've got 2 back-to-back stories I want to cover with kind of, you can almost say it's like the theme is stolen identities in Oregon. We'll start with that theme and see where it goes.
Yeah.
First one we're going to cover is a young lady named Opal Whiteley. That is her name that we're going to go use for the most part as we go into the story here. So Opal Whiteley comes from Cottage Grove, Oregon, which is just north of Roseburg here, part of Southland County. And Opal Whiteley definitely raised up in more of the logging, they call it a logger's shanty town in Cottage Grove. And she kind of was a very precocious child, very interesting, always wandered off from her house, always hung out with the animals, always did her own, kind of beat to her own drum there.
She was a free spirit.
Free spirit, right? Just that kind of stuff. But they say she could have been what was like a child prodigy because one of the things she had was a photographic memory. And so her first kind of starting getting attention was she was about 5 or 6 years old, and she would memorize passages of the Bible and recite them in her church, which blew a lot of people away because a lot of times some of those kids couldn't talk very well. And here you got this girl reciting chapters of the Bible at a time.
All right.
So she kind of goes up from there. She skips her first couple of years of school. Okay. And I think she started school immediately in the 3rd grade, right? Now, a lot of Opal that we get is from her published diary. So she did keep a diary when she was a little girl, and it later on became published. And it was actually when it was published, when she was in her 20s, it was the second top selling book of the United States that year, which was like 1914 or something like that. So it was like the second highest. There, yeah. Yeah. It was like the second. So you can imagine how popular it was in the United States that this little girl's diary.
For a diary to be. Yes. For that many people.
And so what was crazy about the diary is it kind of came out when it was published was that her name wasn't Opal Whiteley. She went by a French name. Her birth name was Francois Benicroft or something like that. So
perfectly pronounced.
I can get the French, but anyways, someone from Harvard did an investigation on her book and was able to trace stuff in her diary to this noble French guy who lost a daughter. Okay. And so Opal claimed that she was kidnapped when about the time she was 4 or 5 years old, and that she was given to the Whiteleys, who were, at the time, they were kind of traveling where the work was. So she said sometime between the time that the Whiteleys left Washington and moved to Cottage Grove, Oregon, that was when she was given to them when she was about 4 or 5 years old. And she was a daughter of a French nobleman who passed away. Now, guess what? No birth certificate to back this up one way or the other. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the thing is, there was more than one Whiteley kid. They had birth certificates on all the other ones, but not one on Opal. Okay. So it starts to get a little interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay. So no birth certificate. Did not look like her siblings. A little bit more olive skin, a little bit darker than all her other siblings. It's a very interesting thing. So before this comes out, before her diary gets published, she makes her way up in Oregon where, since she was able to do so well with religion, because she believed in nature and God, those were her two things. So there's a Christian group that thought, hey, she'd be a great representative. So they took her really all around the state of Oregon. She started over 100 different Christian youth camps. And
she did a lot of talks and speeches.
For 17 years old, she was going around recruiting all these things. It was amazing how well spoken she was, but she was also kind of a little bit different.
Right.
But people loved listening to her talk. She had long black hair. Eccentric. Like you almost call her like a modern day hippie.
Right. So she was unique at the time.
Super unique.
Yeah.
Loved animals. She was very good at knowing the scientific classification of animals and that kind of stuff. She was very studious. In fact, before she graduated high school, the University of Oregon brought her on. They said, yeah, you can come to U of O. All the professors were completely taken aback about how intelligent she was. She goes to college. She doesn't have a good time in college. It's a little bit more structured than what she's used to and doesn't make it too well there. And so she gets a call that her mom's dying of cancer and that they, in traditional fashion, is you need to come home and take care of the other kids while the mom's passing away of cancer. And so Opal, who had wanted nothing to do with this family because she didn't believe that they were her family, she literally, leaving U of O to go back to Cottage Grove to raise her siblings, she goes right to Hollywood instead. She wanted to make it in the movies. That was it. She knew she can get by with teaching nature down there because that was her thing. She was a naturalist, like almost one of those first eco-friendly, people. Now, the funny part is there's a weird claim to that because back then, at the turn of the century, that's when movies were just started going. So Cottage Grove has one other crazy claim to fame at that time is that Buster Keaton was there filming his movie called The General. So Cottage Grove had this little flash of Hollywood.
Yeah. So I wonder if they ever cross paths.
It's got to be. She had to have like seen that, the attention, that kind of stuff, because that's all the papers talked about was Buster Keaton being in Cottage Grove, which the footage is crazy. I don't know if you ever seen any of the footage from Buster Keaton's a general, but they in real life, they actually crashed a big train off of a cliff. And back then they didn't have special effects. So it was a real train. Opal Whiteley goes to Hollywood, gets some headshots done, that kind of stuff. A couple weeks does not work out, right?
Right.
She wants to write a book called something like The Fairyland of Nature's True Story.
Yes.
Get some backers for it. So she starts to, and the financing of it goes okay until she runs out. And then she had to make the rest of the books by hand. So there's a lot of the copies of this Fairyland book.
It was the Fairyland Around Us.
Yes.
What it was called, yeah.
Fairyland Around Us. So she finishes them by hand. So the crazy part is one of the last remaining copies of this book is at the Cottage Grove Library, where they actually also have a statue of Opal Whiteley.
Right.
So she writes that book, does okay with it, that kind of stuff. The money fell out, but she realized she'd rather write than act. Okay. So she moves to the East Coast. She's going to go to where, New York and that area where publications are the big thing. And so she goes and meets this publisher, which I love that back then you could go and just like schedule a moment to meet with the publisher and pitch your books.
Just storm into people's office and demand things.
Yes. So she's still a young lady. She's like 20, 21 at this time. And so the publisher says, look, I like your story, but I'd rather have, do you have a journal? Because if you have a journal from when you're a little kid, that's what I want to publish. I don't care about whether make-believe or nature books you want to do. I want your journal. And so the crazy part was she still had it, but she claimed that a jealous foster sister had tore it up, but she kept all the pieces. So she had to send for it. It was still in a storage unit in Los Angeles. So they got the box of this torn up diary. And so the publisher actually put Opal Whiteley up in, I guess, like mother-in-law's house so that she could spend time putting this diary back together like a puzzle. Okay. So the diary is when she was around 6 or 7 years old, still in publication, by the way, this diary. So she published, so this is the book that gets published, becomes, number 2 bestseller, that kind of stuff. And I'm going to read you a couple passages from it. So let's go to Opal Whiteley's diary, 6 and 7 years old. Now, to keep in mind as I'm reading this, people start realizing, why is she using French words? She starts using French words in the diary. Then they asked her, the publisher is like, hey, you're using French words. Do you speak French? And she goes, no, I don't. Then people start reading in the book and that kind of stuff, going, wait a minute, there's all this French stuff. And there's a reference to, this is where they finally realize that she may be tied to this guy as her dad. But anyways, this is from a chapter in Opal Whiteley's diary. This is, today I sit here at my desk while the children are out for recess time. I cannot have goings to talk to the trees. Teacher says I must stay in the whole time. After our reading lesson, the teacher did ask questions. First, she asked Jimmy to spell horse and donkey and engine. He did. I'm going to pause right there. Opal's going to introduce one of my new favorite characters I've never read in a book. And this is the person I want to know more of. Like if there was a spin-off journal, it's this character. Here we go. Ready? Then she asked Big Judd some things. He got up in a slow way and said, I don't know. Like he most always does. And he sat down. I love the inclusion of Big Judd right there.
Right.
That paints a picture.
You exactly know who that kid is.
I want Big Judd.
Because he answers everything the same way.
I don't know.
What do you want for dinner, Big Judd? I don't know.
I don't know. Big Judd went into logging. I can almost guarantee it.
Big Judd, did you take a shower today? I don't know.
I don't know. Big Judd, where's your shoes?
I don't know.
Then she asked Lola some things, and Lola did tell her all in one breath. And the teacher marked her a good mark in the book, and she gave Lola a smile. And Lola gave her nice red hair a smooth back, and she smiled a smile back at the teacher. Then the teacher did call my name. I stood up real quick. I did have thinks it would be nice to get a smile from her like Lola got. The teacher asked me 8 things at once. What is a baby pig, a baby deer, and a baby horse? And I did say in a quick way, a pig is a cochin, a deer is a dane, a horse is a poulain. Teacher did shake her head and say, that's not it. And I said, it is. The crazy part is, The 3 animal names that she gave, the pig, the deer, and the horse names, she gave the French, what they are in French. But the teacher, who's, Cottage Grove teaching, 8 grades at once here,
Right.
never heard of the French things. Teacher argues with her, says, nope, Opal, for that you're going to stay in at recess today and tomorrow and the next day. You'll be an example for the other children in our school. They're out to play in a most long recess. But I know a pig is a cochin, a mouse is a mullet, a duck is a canard. Angel Father always did call them so. He knows. But no one hereabouts does call things by the names that Angel Father did. I do have lonesome feels. Heavy stuff, right?
Right.
So the question is, who's Angel Father? And when Diary was published, there was actually a little intro where they asked her about it. And they believe the Angel Father is her real birth dad. There's a lot of, had to do with that because Angel Father taught her a song that she always must remember, Le Chant d'Icien de Harvard, which was another big French, apparently nursery rhyme, that kind of stuff. She mentions in her diary an Angel Father and eventually an Angel Mother who were, when she was writing her journal, were benevolent figures from heaven who left Opal a book full of names and things to learn. And it was from these books that she got names for her pets. She does remember that being in a boat when she was her first memory is being in a boat and the boat capsizing. And then all of a sudden she was in the water and her mother drowned. And people later telling her that her dad died. So then that's when she feels that the Whiteleys took her in. She was given to the Whiteleys. Okay. So there's kind of this weird thing there. On top of it being more of a French words that were in her diary, they also have more of a Cajun twang to them, which once again, the French Cajun. So you start getting where, how was this little girl growing up in a Cottage Grove logging camp
know anything about the French Cajun
French
dialect?
Words and yes, these different kind of Cajun things. So anyways, Diary is a big hit, moves to London. But she moves as Francois. She does not go by Opal Whiteley anymore after her journal's published. She goes by what she believes her birth name to be. And guess what? London and Indian hierarchy, noble people accept her for this. They believe she's the daughter of this French guy that they all knew. And she stays with them. She stays with the royalty in India. She stays with the royalty in England and does this for quite some time until about 1948. They find her living in a squalor in a London flat. They put her in a home. And she lives from 1948 until 90 or 92 when she finally passes away. She lives in this home. She lives in basically in a psychiatric ward for 50 years. She always maintained that was her name, that she didn't, and she's buried with that name. And her gravestone actually says Francois, aka Opal Whiteley. She was diagnosed. There's a lot of people saying that she is schizophrenic, that she had head trauma, multiple personalities, that kind of stuff. So she had a lot of diagnosis and could not take care of herself for the last half of her life.
Yeah, it's interesting. They say she also fell in love with a local cleric while she was in London. She became increasingly disturbed and was often in dire poverty.
Yes.
And then she was eventually committed to a hospital where she was known to the staff as the princess.
Yes.
And visitors would make remarks that she behaved like a princess.
Yeah.
Died at the hospital. She remained there until her death at the hospital. She was buried at some cemetery, Highgate Cemetery, and her gravestone also says, "I spake as a child, Spake."
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. Super interesting.
Yeah.
Her journal, I couldn't put it down. It's actually super interesting. I'm going to read you one last passage from her journal here that I thought was really poignant. Now, she had a bunch of animals that she gave names to. So her pig that she called Peter, his name was Peter Paul Rubens, was the name of her pig, okay?
Yeah, sounds like a good band.
Right? Yesterday, the mama, she never called her mom when she was growing, she called her the mama because in her mind, she still had a mom that had drowned. So yesterday, the mama let me go off to the woods all day after my morning's work was done. Half my friends went with me. Part of the time, the crow perched on my shoulder, and then he would ride on the dog's back. Felix Mendelssohn rode in my apron pocket, and I think that was a mouse or something. We had not gone far when we heard an awful squeal. I felt cold all over. Then I did have knowledge why the mama had let me start to the woods without a scolding. It was butchering day. I ran a quick run to save my dear Peter Paul Rubens, but he was already dying, and he died with his head in my lap. I started there feeling dead too until my knees were all wet with blood from the throat of the dear Paul Rubens. After I changed my clothes and put the bloody ones on the rain barrel, I did go to the woods to look for the soul of Peter Paul Rubens. I didn't find it, but I think in spring I will find it among the flowers.
Interesting.
One of her other quotes that she said, pretty good, was, potatoes are a very interesting folk. I think they must see a lot of what is going on in the earth because they have so many eyes. Just
there you go.
Very interesting, very interesting, a different outlook on life and that kind of stuff. So that's our first story.
There we go.
Okay. Now, the second story, way more recent, still takes place in Oregon. Still possible stolen identity. Okay.
I like it.
This one's really good. Okay. I almost wasn't going to cover this one, but I liked it too much. So I'm like, I got to cover this. So there's this guy. He works for the Oregon LLC, the Liquor License Commission.
OLCC.
OLCC, right?
Yeah.
He was one of the prominent guys, actually. He was really good, especially in the Bend area. He had a great track record with the OLCC. He worked out of Portland. He worked out of Bend. All over the state. In fact, he even, sometimes if there was a big news article covered about an OLC shutting down a bar or something like that, he was the front man. So they would actually interview this guy for the news. Okay?
He's like the publicist guy or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. He had a good reputation, good spotless record. He was going by the name of Jason Evers. He had got a passport in 2005. Well, unbeknownst to him, the FBI was doing this operation where they were reviewing people who applied for passports because you got to supply, your birth certificate, social security number kind of stuff to make sure nobody was doing any fraud or, that kind of stuff. Well, guess what? The crazy part is the FBI found 112 cases of stolen identity when they did this project over 5 years, investigating everyone who had applied for a passport. This guy was one of them. The name Jason Evers was actually tied to a child that was murdered when he was 3 years old back in 1982. Social security number and date of birth and name tied to a murdered child in Ohio. And here this guy's using it in 2005 to get a passport. So
one-way trip to jail, buddy.
The best part is the FBI Googles the name, and sure enough, the first thing comes up, the OLCC video of him on the news. So they call. So the FBI agent literally just calls, and it gets the guy's voicemail, the OLCC place, and says, "Hey, we need to meet." The very next day, he's arrested for fraud, and they said, "Okay, what's your real name?" And he goes, "I can't tell you. It's too dangerous for me to let it out." And so the court's like, "What do you mean?" They literally change his name to John Doe because they don't know who he is, and he refuses to tell anyone.
Oh no, I think I know where you're going. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So of course, yes, this is the instant big news story in Oregon. Okay, it picks up everywhere because this guy who was almost, he's got a little bit of a name for himself is now all over the news. Now here's the crazy part: the suspect's friends, coworkers, and fiance crowded into the courthouse to kind of vouch for him that he's a good guy. He's enthusiastic. He's truthful. His lawyer said he had a master's degree and an impeccable employment record.
And can any of you tell me what his name is?
Yes. His fingerprints not on file anywhere. Authorities say they don't know of any old friends or old home videos. He worked as an OLCC investigator since 2002, and his former coworkers say he compiled a respectable enforcement record before his arrest. The commission and the state police say background checks generally screen only for criminal history and rely on fingerprints. He had neither one. The man was able to also serve on the advisory committee for the State Public Employees Retirement System Board. And he was one of the best board members. What his fiance said is that she was told that his parents had died and that he had reconnected with a long-lost uncle, only to lose him in death too. He loved chess and tennis. He owned no TV, read philosophy books, and was a practicing Buddhist, she said. But unlike her, he never went out to bars and kept to himself. They say he may have been from New Jersey or Washington, D.C.
Checks out.
Because get this, he could sport an East Coast accent and was able to speak street-type Spanish. He may have grown up in a foster home. He was a master chess player. His mother is likely dead and his father may be in prison. This is all the speculation.
I mean,
okay.
there's so much to unfold there.
It gets more. There's more. Okay, we're just is that wild? What? So all this stuff's coming to light of whatever people think they kind of know this guy.
Who are you?
So 2 months go by, and of course everyone's putting out like, hey, who is this guy? Where's this guy from? Because he's not saying. So finally, they get a tip from this prominent guy in Washington, D.C., who was like I think he was like a lawyer or something like that, but he worked with legals and laws and that kind of stuff. But he came forward and said, I know who this guy is because I brought him as a kid over from Bulgaria. So the backstory is that they rescued, he was an American diplomat, and his wife went over there and found this family they became friends with, and they had a son. And his son was super sharp and intelligent, and they could tell. Well, Bulgaria is going through their communist revolution at the time, and they didn't know what was going to happen with them or their son, so they offered to bring their son back to America. And guess what? The kid comes to America and thrives, graduates high school with honors, goes to college. Now, the crazy part is the family, the foster family lost track of him after college because he just disappeared off the face of the earth. So they completely lose him. He's in college in North Carolina and nothing. Okay. They don't hear anything from him. He first resurfaces in Denver, Colorado, working as a bartender, but using this fake alias of this kid. So the sad part is he stole the identity of Jason Evers. He was a 3-year-old who was kidnapped and murdered in 1982.
Why not just use his real name though?
Well, his real name was, the giveaway is Jojcin Karsev, which definitely is a Bulgarian name, right?
I mean, yeah.
He actually had several different identities they found out over the years, because one of the crazy part is one of the things that helped build the case against this poor guy. I told you he was a chess player and that kind of stuff. He entered chess tournaments in Colorado and Idaho from like 2000, for a good like 10 years. And he was usually winning these things or coming pretty close to the top, but every time, sometimes using different names. So big chess player. Love that he showed up in tournaments and that kind of stuff.
Not a whole lot of background checks with chess.
No, not chess. No.
Are you good at chess?
He moved. I like checkers.
You like checkers?
I would love to play chess ever since I watched Queen's Gambit.
Yeah.
And I even have a Lord of the Rings chess set. But I haven't played. I don't know one to play with.
Yeah.
You want to play some chess?
I used to play when I was younger.
Really?
I'm not very good, but
I'd play some chess.
It's definitely a game with patience and strategy, you know?
So he moved to Portland in 2002, where he got a job as the inspector of the Oregon Liquor Control Commission. Now, the crazy part was he created this fabricated resume to get this OLCC job, because really at this point, it's kind of like a bartender, right?
Yeah.
My favorite part is no one investigated like some of what he put on his
references.
No reference.
Like, yeah, he looks good.
One of the things he did between Denver and OLCC is he was a private investigator as well. So he had that to his resume. Now, the reasons why the fake identity, he also says that he wrote letters to friends when he was finally caught and had to, because what happened was they took 2 years and they finally deported him back to Bulgaria. Okay, so here's the final results. He never wanted to go back to Bulgaria, because you can't say you don't want to go back to Bulgaria and they ship you back there. It's not doing you any good. You know, it's kind of the communist rule, that kind of stuff's a little bit like Russia, where it's like, yeah, if you're going to denounce the motherland's not going to, too kind of it,
you want to stay in good old America.
Yep. So now here's the crazy part. Yeah, it was Tuesday, October 23rd, 2012, he's sent back to Bulgaria. Now, as a consequence of his deportation, Karstev is barred from legally re-entering the U.S. for 10 years, which would mean this October, this guy can come back to America.
He's back.
No, I'd love to find out he's been back. He was back like after 2 years.
He did stay like a month.
Like he's Tom Holland or something, this whole time.
He's Tom Holland.
What I do feel sad is that the family of the boy that was murdered, they didn't want this attention, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, the real Jason was kidnapped and killed in a YMCA by his home and buried in dense woods. The child's killer, Adrian Williams, tried to collect a ransom from the family, but he was sent to prison for about 14 to 50 years. I love the gap there.
Right. Well, I thought you were going to say there's similar stories to where people claim to be like ex-MI6 agents and CIA and FBI agents, and then they interview government official and be like, we have absolutely zero record of this guy working for the government. And he's like, that's what they were supposed to say.
Yes,
Yeah, they're not going to tell you I work for them because they're not supposed to, disclose that information.
I love
He's
it.
He just works at some sort of factory.
Like a
tomato soup factory. And no.
For Blockbuster.
Right.
All the way to the end. Yeah.
Right.
It's so wild. The guy investigated his house. They did find a material that he was using to create fake identities.
So he's just a scam artist.
He's just a little bit of a scam artist.
He was a little Anna Delvey. We don't want to talk about her, but she was a little, he was kind of like that.
But I love that he did. Okay, but he did this stuff not in a malicious way. Like he would do good. Like he had these great records of like employment. People loved him. Like there's the house that he was renting where he was arrested. He actually rented a house just on the border between Oregon and Idaho. In Idaho, when he was he'd been renting this house for like 10 years, and the landlady said like best occupant she ever had. He kept a clean house. He actually did his own repairs. Like he was awesome.
So he was just a good dude.
He just
he made a
he didn't want to
really
go back to Bulgaria.
crappy decisions. He was just trying to live the American dream. I mean, you can't really fault him for.
Yeah, there's nothing malicious.
I mean, you can fault him, but you can't. That it's a fine line between, not wanting to go back to countries where they don't treat people very fairly to staying in America where he's being a proper citizen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he tried.
And that's hard. That's hard to really.
It's a hard one for me. I don't know if you've heard of 10 Barrel Brewing.
Sir, I'm very familiar with 10 Barrel Brewing.
They have a limited edition beer called the AKA John Doe.
Is that right?
Jason Evers Deutschen Karsev. It's a Northwest Red and was brewed as a nod to Karsev's multiple identities.
I shall seek and I shall taste.
Yes, we'll do a follow-up on that one.
We'll do a live taste test.
But I love the fact that I want this guy to come back and then,
All right. Hey, man, if you're listening,
wild.
hit us up, Oregon Files Podcast, yahoo.com.
Yeah, you got shouted out, buddy. You and Opal Whiteley, same podcast. But anyways.
Opal's a little more, a little more gone.
A little more gone.
Yeah, I don't think she can reach us from the grave. Maybe she can. All right.
What do you got for us, El?
Oh, well, hopefully as exciting as Opal, but I have 3 characters. I like to call them characters. They're not from Oregon, but they have kind of similar stories of Opal and the gentleman we were just talking about. First one, his name is Boriska Kipovanovic. I pronounced that like so perfectly.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
He was a Russian man. He claimed to be reincarnation of a late Martian. Boriska says he lived on Mars until he was killed during a nuclear war. So he said he lived on Mars. He was killed during a nuclear war.
So there's a nuclear war on Mars. This is before. Is he from the future this war happens or in the past? And that's why Mars is barren.
Yeah, that's a good question. It says before the war, he was part of the Martian team that regularly visited Earth. So he was, he was some Earth exploration guy, He claimed to have met ancient Egyptians during one trip.
I just was going to ask.
There you go. He added that Martians they've unlocked the secret of immortality, and they have the technology to stop themselves from aging once they reach 35, which is incredibly specific.
That's wild. Yeah,
35.
That makes sense.
He says they have spacecraft that cannot detect life on Mars because the entire planet was leveled during the war.
The entire planet?
That's what he says. This is what he says.
It's still there, unless it's in a weird.
Yeah, maybe that's why it's the red planet.
There you go.
The rest of the Martians relocated underground, so they're all underground. Did you see that picture recently with that door?
The door
Yo,
on
that
Mars.
was crazy.
It's too perfectly cut to be a natural formation. Right?
That was pretty wild.
That's a door.
Apparently, so Martians, they don't have a problem with oxygen. They breathe carbon dioxide.
Okay,
that's our first character here.
I want to jump on one thing on that Egyptian comment because I had a feeling you're going to make that comment. Did you hear about the dagger with King Tut?
No.
So when they did 3D imaging of his, the mummy wrappings, that kind of stuff, they noticed that there was something on his hip that was wrapped up in this thing, and it was a dagger and with a black blade. Okay. So they only found the dagger like last 10, 20 years, like when they did that kind of stuff until recently. They're trying to figure out what in the world that dagger blade was made from. It was made from a piece of a meteorite.
What?
Now it gets even crazier. Egyptians, as far as I know, did not have the ability to kind of make that into a blade.
Yeah, there wasn't blacksmith.
They couldn't heat anything hot enough to make that. There's rumors that it came from maybe a completely nearby civilization, more Mesopotamia area or something like that. They could have done that and given it as a gift, but that blade was part of a meteorite.
Interesting. So they would have had to extract the meteorite, mold it, and then create that.
And then give it as a gift to King Tut.
That's kind of awesome.
It's really awesome. Anyways,
Good.
That's a good segue. Thank you. I love that one.
On to our next character, Helen Smith.
Oh, boy.
Helene Smith. She was actually born Catherine Muller, which is my mother-in-law's maiden name. I'll have to ask her about this. So Helen Smith, she claimed to be reincarnated from the famous French Queen Marie Antoinette, who didn't she get her head chopped off? Right, Marie Antoinette. I'm pretty sure.
Someone had
Louis the Fifth and Marie Antoinette. Yeah, they got killed during the French Revolution when Napoleon Bonaparte. Anyway, she claimed to be the reincarnation. Also, I mean, if you're going to be, pick one or the other, right? The daughter of Arab Sheikh, which was the wife of a Hindu prince. She worked as a spiritual medium, claiming to receive messages from a lot of unseen creatures. What does that mean? Unseen creatures? Like Medusa?
I mean,
she frequently fell into trances, claimed to communicate with Martians, again with the Martians. She also said she understood the language spoken on Mars and would often speak and write what she claimed to be Martian. She had drawings of the terrain of Mars, showing like boats, houses, plants, bridges, lakes scattered across the Martian terrain. And of course, Mars hasn't had water for millions of years. It's dried up, but they know like where there's like, they can tell where like there was beds of water at one point, and like the sediments, billions of years ago. So
wild.
That's her second character.
I love it.
Interesting. So they both, those two both claim to have some sort of connection to Mars.
And it's weird. You mentioned the trances. Okay?
Yeah. So, going into trances.
Opal Whiteley they call them meditations.
Right.
Other stuff I've read where people they call them newer age stuff. They get in downloads from like off planet stuff. Yeah. The people will get downloads, and that's how they learn things. And they say that it's the same thing like when an artist can like kick out a song in one night or something like that, and they ask them like, how did you write that song in one night? And they're like, it just came to me. Like they say that kind of stuff. It's been really freaky. And what's funny is Tesla and Leonardo da Vinci both had the same thing where they would get these trances and that kind of stuff. And I think was it Leonardo da Vinci, they found out he lived near a cave that had these like ether vapors.
Oh,
that would cause it. And then
just getting high,
right? Just getting high. Same thing with Tesla, where literally these people were just getting high off something. But hey, if it opens up the mind, and
like that. You ever seen that Simpsons episode where Flanders builds a park for Maude, and they think that Maude is speaking through them, speaking to them, but it's just a gas leak, and everyone's just
yes, exactly.
It's not funny. All right, our last character.
Yes,
his name is King Arthur Pendragon. Which, if you're familiar with the Knights of the Round Table, with the lore of King Arthur and Guinevere and Sir Lancelot, and the whole spiel.
Is King Arthur Pendragon a real person, or is this like a Robin Hood? Like it could be like a mix of a couple different real people.
I think he was real.
I'm looking this up.
I'm pretty sure King Arthur was real.
I'm upset.
I don't. Going. So he claimed to be the reincarnation of King Arthur Pendragon, or his real name was actually John Rothwell. He legally renamed himself to be King Arthur Pendragon because he claimed to be reincarnated, but he was actually just a regular biker until 1986.
Okay.
When he learned about King Arthur.
Okay.
So was he watching like a special on TV? Yeah. He was like flipping through something in a magazine, but like,
I love it.
That's me. He felt their lives were way too similar and way too coincidence. He declared himself our reincarnation. To seal this new position as a king, he formed the loyal Arthurian war band consisting of his loyalists. First of all, I just want to know, how did he convince people that I am the reincarnation of King Arthur Pendragon? I have so much fault. I just got to know how he fell into that. Was it like his neighbor, like his mom? Like, was he living like in his basement and be like, Mom, can you come?
This is a timeshare pitch. He offered people like free buffet, and he got them all in there and goes, okay, guys,
listen to this
sales pitch here.
Right.
I need some loyalists.
So being King Arthur in the 21st century is actually really hard. So as the reincarnated King Arthur found out, he would hold worship sessions at Stonehenge.
Yes.
Which is the English heritage site, in England. They ended up charging him and his followers to park their vehicles. King Arthur said, "You can't charge me. no one charged King Arthur in his previous life to tether his horse at Stonehenge, so you can't charge me. Wow. So they ended up going to court. Of course, they got thrown out, or he ends up having to, the legality of the parking tickets in court, claiming it's infringed on his right to worship. The judge ruled the parking tickets were reasonable and legal measure. Meanwhile, the king insisted that the charges were unfair and it violated his human rights, and he was being made to pay to pray.
Wow.
So his whole thing was, if King Arthur can tie his horses to Stonehenge, why can't I park my car here?
Right? Yeah.
Because it's the same. I guess if you drive a Mustang.
Drive a Mustang. Yeah.
So King Arthur, I mean, that dude is interesting. Right
That's
there.
real. That's interesting. Yeah.
His loyalists. I just got to know how many people that were in the loyalist band, and did they like practice in the garage? Like, was it like a rock band, like in '86?
I picture like a bad D&D set, or something like LARPing.
Oh, they played D&D.
They played D&D. They LARPed. They had foam swords.
Yes,
because they had to practice for the second coming. Or something.
Yes, but it's he was like a biker, and then he was just. Now I saw a picture of him.
Yeah.
So good.
So good. Exactly what you imagine.
Yes, so good.
So get this. I looked it up. to see if King Arthur's a real person.
Yeah.
And debatable.
Oh, yeah.
Completely debatable. There's
no hard facts about it.
There's no hard facts, but they do believe that there was a King Arthur. He battled against Saxon invaders in the early 6th century. In fact, there's a lot of poems and stuff that was written hundreds of years later by different monks and different Celtic priests that reference him. Now, the hard part is some of the Celtic stuff is they put King Arthur at like 100 different battles. There's no way over like a time frame of 200 years he could be at all
that many places
unless he is immortal.
I think the Round Table was there was something like the Round Table where they had like knights gathering around. Like,
so they're all show there's no one person at the end of the table.
Right, I think so. Measure. Yeah. I think Guinevere, is that how you pronounce her name?
Guinevere, yeah.
I think she was real too.
Yeah, I think there was.
But the whole sword in the stone, I think that was kind of fable too, right?
Yeah, but they found where one of the lakes was, they found a sword not too long ago. Like last year, some 8-year-old boy found a sword in a lake.
See, now I don't know what to believe.
Right? Because
was his name Arthur? Then I give up.
See, no, that'd be amazing if it was. No, but there's this new thing I want to do where you just get like a high-powered magnet and you toss it on a cable into like a lake or a canal or something, and you pull stuff up, right? Well, this kid was goofing around, pulls out a medieval sword. Which is crazy because I don't think that's something you would just drop and lose back in medieval times, right? So I think that was interesting. But they also put weird stuff out of canals, like guns and like people lost all kinds of weird cell phones.
Yeah. Metal detecting would be fun too. I always want to do metal detecting.
Yeah.
Go find some Bobby Dazzlers.
Go find
some top pocket finds.
Top pocket finds. I would love to go metal detecting.
Yeah.
I've heard some cool stories.
Yeah. Anyway, those are my characters.
I love them. Pendragon, yes.
Some good stuff. Okay. Transition.
Yes.
Transition. So since we are the Oregon Files podcast,
Dun, dun.
Or I have some Oregon trivia. Okay. You can play along. Mark can play along. You guys can play along, whatever. 6 questions to throw at you here.
Oregon trivia. 6 questions.
They're not that hard, or maybe they are hard. I don't know. I try to keep it in between like medium hard and not so hard.
If this is like the state nut, I know what it is.
Nope, don't have that on it. It's similar to it.
It's the Philibert.
What is the name of the river that forms the northeast border of Oregon with the state of Idaho? The river that forms the northeast border of
the Snake River?
The Snake River.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you.
In this town, you will find a giant caveman statue.
A caveman statue?
Yes.
I know a Bigfoot statue. Caveman. I almost want to say it's Medford.
Close.
Rogue River?
Close.
Grants Pass.
I
knew it was right again. Yeah. I knew I was in the neighborhood.
And this one's real easy. What's the capital of Oregon?
Salem.
What Portland landmark is the world's largest independent bookstore?
Powell's Books.
Powell's Bookstore. In this town, you can find the Shakespearean Theater.
Ashland.
Because
he has a Shakespeare Festival every year.
What is the state nickname? What is Oregon? What is the nickname?
I thought we're the Beaver State.
The Beaver State. Yep. And what's the name of the first national park in Oregon?
First national park?
Yeah.
Was it Crater Lake National Park?
Crater Lake National Park.
Oh, man. All right. Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you. Very cool.
Yeah.
That's good.
Crater Lake's really pretty. Ever been to Crater Lake?
I love, yeah, I've been to Crater Lake. Love Crater Lake.
It's
Little
gorgeous.
Wizard Island.
Oh my gosh, Crater Lake's so cool.
It's a drive out there, but it's Diamond Lake's in the way. Great.
Crater Lake's a must see. If
Yeah,
you've never
Crater Lake's
been to
a
Crater
must-see.
Lake, Crater Lake's so cool.
So cool.
Okay, well,
Good Oregon trivia. We'll do more Oregon trivia because there's a lot of good
oh,
trivia.
there's so much out there.
Yeah. There's so much crazy stuff. One book I checked out at the Douglas County Library to do research. Shout out Douglas County Library. Anyways, I checked out a book. It was published in 1978, and the book itself, published in 1978, was copies. This guy had like self-published a book, and he made copies of like old articles from like the 1860s up to like the
cool.
1920s. And so I'm like, this is not going to be published anywhere else, right?
Yeah,
so I
that's
checked
cool.
it out. But my favorite part is they had one of the first maps of Oregon right before it became a state. Now, here's my
wow.
favorite part about this. You can tell it's a very biased map because the left side shows like where Portland's at, where Salem's at. But on the Eastern Oregon lower corner, it just says in big words, snakes. And I love it. Like here's
Was he afraid of snakes, or he was just calling the people snakes?
Just warning
Somebody
it.
ripped them off.
I love
Snakes.
it. It showed where the Native American tribes were. It showed the major cities, and then just
Snakes.
lower eastern corner, snakes.
It's not very
I
specific.
love it. The snake
Right.
area.
Well, speaking of snakes, how about some? We'll finish this up here with some good animal
I love it.
dad jokes.
Shout out to Opal. We're doing some dad jokes
Shout
about
out.
animals.
Opal. Why was the whale sad?
Got me.
It lost its porpoise.
That checks out.
This one, it's going to sound familiar. All right. The sea cucumber turns to the octopus and the sea urchin and says, "With friends like these, who needs an enemies?"
Yep.
You know, that's from
Yep.
Finding Nemo.
Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was going to grow some herbs, but I couldn't find the time.
That's good.
Not good.
That's a good one.
I tried to catch some fog, but I missed.
I like it. That's fine.
I saw a beaver movie last night. It was the best damn movie I've ever seen.
Best damn movie. I love a good beaver joke like that. About dams.
This is my favorite one. A dung beetle walked into a bar and asked, "Is this stool taken?"
Yes. That one's my favorite.
Stupid.
That one's so good. That's so good.
Man. Why couldn't the shellfish farmer go for a run?
The shellfish farmer?
Yeah.
I got no idea.
He pulled a muscle.
Love it.
Man, we need some like drum sound effects.
That was so good.
And the last one, smaller babies may be delivered by stork, but the heavier ones need a crane.
Wow.
Boom.
Yes.
Oregon Files podcast mic drop. Just
All
kidding.
right.
All right.
So we're on YouTube. We're free everywhere. I hope everyone knows that, and those that listen to it probably already know. Where else can they find us besides YouTube?
Check us out on, just Google us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or on Spotify. We are on any place you get your podcast. Check us out. Basically, we should be there. We also have a Facebook page. You can check us out. And I'm going to start putting our episodes on Instagram. You can just find Oregon Files Podcast on Instagram. And if you want to get hold of the show, it's OregonFilesPodcast@yahoo.com.
Boom.
If you are a local business and you listen to this, we're just trying to get some more local business to back our podcast. If you're interested, please just hit us up. And just thank you for everyone for listening for these last 19 episodes. And our 20th one, hopefully will just be just as good. And, hopefully everyone will just continue to be entertained by us.
Yeah, we had some fun stuff in store.
Good stuff. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Appreciate everyone, listening and giving us comments, even though you are some family members that just trying to be nice. So we appreciate it.
We appreciate it. Yeah.
Anyway, well, thanks everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Cheers.